Hey everybody, Andrew Zimmern here. I'm thrilled to be able to bring you my rescued greens pasta. This is a dish that I make in my home at least once a week. Even in wintertime, I make huge pots of the greens, keep them in the fridge, sometimes freeze them, because I can then take them out and use them as a side. I can dump them into soups and stews, and I can toss them in pastas for an easy, nutritious, super healthy weeknight supper whose flavor combination is absolutely one of my favorites. And it's super simple. It's garlic and leeks and whatever rescued greens that you have. Here we have little mustards and spinaches and kales and little bits of lettuce, and I'll sometimes put thinly sliced Savoy cabbage in there. And the really nice thing about this is that in my refrigerator, when I buy radishes and beets and other root vegetables that have leafy tops to them, I cut those and saute them in olive oil. I do the same process and I make small side dishes with those. And I encourage you, the more peppery, spicy tops that you can put in here, the better. And I also think that this type of cookery represents the inexpensive, healthy solution that we have from a nutritional standpoint to make us all better. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get my pasta in the water. I have a large volume of rapidly boiling salted water, not too large. I want the pasta water to taste like seawater. That's the appropriate amount of salt. If I use too much water, my water itself doesn't have any of the pasta starch in it. I'm actually going to use some of the pasta water in there. So I have here, 3 or 4 quarts of water for my 2 portions of pasta. Now, the most important thing to remember when you're cooking pasta is to maintain a high enough heat so that when you put the pasta in, it's boiling and never stops boiling. And that's the case right now. And then the really important move here, especially with dried pasta of this type, and we're using penny, but any dried, heavier pasta like rigatoni, just give it a stir. And the reason that we give that a stir is so that the weight of the pasta, we know there's nothing sticking on the bottom. And right now, the action of the boiling, it's returned to a boil after that quick stir, is actually helping to keep the pasta from sticking on the bottom. That's really the only problem that we have. Now, while the pasta is cooking, and that takes about 10 minutes, we're gonna start with our greens. And the first thing I do is I add a 1/2 cup of olive oil, really good olive oil, or into a saute pan over a low heat. And I'm going to add a lot of garlic, some salt, some pepper, and whatever sort of spicy ingredient that you have around. I'm just going over here and grabbing cayenne. You can use red chili flake. This is that traditional Italian way of treating greens with olive oil, garlic, and chili that's just absolutely out of control spectacular. Now you notice that we're hot enough to pull the garlic flavor out of there, but we're not hot enough to scorch our spices or to brown the garlic. We don't want any of that to happen. I'm also gonna add just a little bit of red chili flake. Just get both of those things rocking in there so we have 2 types of heat. And I can smell the garlic. It's now really nice and aromatic. Once that happens and you feel that the garlic flavor is starting to infuse into the oil and you can smell the garlic, I mean really robustly smell the garlic, which I can, and I can actually see it getting glassy and kind of soft over this low heat. And there's 1 or 2 little dots of sizzle. No sizzle that's gonna color the garlic. I'm not scorching the chili flakes or the cayenne or the salt or the pepper, but I can see little bits of bubbling. That's the moisture that came out of the garlic into the oil. It's at that point that I raise up my heat and I add my leeks. Now, you can add onions, you can add shallots, whatever sort of allium you have around. I've really come to enjoy this dish the most with leeks. There's something about the flavor of a leek that's just a little nuttier and sweeter and very, very unique. But conventional white onions work as well. Or no onions at all, because you have the garlic in there. And I've raised the heat up to about medium. And the reason is I just want to gently sweat the leeks in that olive oil. And the reason that I'm doing it gently is that while the leeks themselves are giving off some moisture into the pan, and you can't brown in the presence of moisture, so we're cooking safely. We're not gonna scorch our garlic. We are cooking the garlic some more. We are cooking the herbs some more. And eventually, that moisture in the leek is going to disappear. And we don't wanna turn our backs on this and all of a sudden find that we've scorched our garlic, and the whole thing tastes bitter and just nasty. I'm gonna season again, try to pull a little more moisture out of those leeks, and we're just gonna let that go. Take a look at this pan here right now. You can see that those leeks and the garlic, there's no color on them at all. They haven't browned. They're just kind of poaching in a way in that olive oil. And they're just getting melting and tender. But all the sweet garlic flavor has come out. Let's see where our pasta is, because depending on where the pasta is, I don't want my pasta to be sitting in the colander for an hour while I do this. I mean, you can, but okay, that's good. We've got a couple minutes left on there. By the way, I have both Pecorino Romano and Parmesan cheese here. Pump up the heat on that. Add some more olive oil, because this is an olive oil sauce. And add our greens. Now at this point, what I like to do is just turn them. And the reason that I turn them is I want the hot leeks and garlic to help cook this dish. And then the very last flavor that I want to add is lemon zest. And the reason that I don't add the lemon zest earlier is that the acidity, the brightness of the lemon zest decreases with every minute it's exposed to heat. And it's different than lemon juice. It's a deeper and slightly different lemon flavor. It's sweeter right in there. And now you see, after all of that delicate poaching, how beautiful this is. I'm gonna slide that off the heat. Test our pasta. Perfect. Had that nailed. Now, I'm doing this in a colander in a bowl because we're on Zoom. Normally what I do is I just dump it in a colander placed over a small bowl so that I can retain some of that pasta water. And you see what we were talking about with the starch that's in there? So now what I'm doing, I'm going back onto the heat, because you can only add so many greens at a time because they've got so much volume. But once they wilt, and I like lots and lots of greens. I want more greens than noodles in this dish, right? So, there are those greens. Add my pasta. A little bit of pasta water. A little bit more olive oil. Salt. Fresh pepper. And I've got this now back on high. And we're just gonna let that cook for about 30 seconds. And what I want is I want that gorgeous olive oil to go into the pasta. I want that garlic flavor, the juice from the greens, the pasta water, everything to mingle together in this dish. That pasta water is evaporated. It is incorporated in the greens. We can turn that off. I can get a ladle and a spoon. And you can see here in this bowl what I mean by as much green as pasta, right? And I'm just gonna take some of my olive oil and sauce and put that over it. A little bit of parm, a little bit of pecorino romano, and that's it. Super simple, easy, fast. As long as it took me to cook the pasta, remember that's what I put in the pot first, is how long it took me to cook the greens. 10 minutes of prep time on this. This is the kind of meal, super healthy, super nutritious, also takes care of a lot of scraps in your refrigerator. You can do this with limp carrots, limp celery, some greens, anything that's dying in your vegetable bin. It's a great way to prevent waste. Sauteed in olive oil with garlic and chilies, maybe a little bit of leek or onion for flavor, and olive oil, and you have this incredible dish. Super simple, super easy.